close.
1 minute.
Are you recording?
We're good. Both streams are going. We've got 1 minute. It's fine there.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to City of Parker Council meeting. Everybody please stand for the invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you with thankful hearts for bringing us together today as we prepare to meet together. I ask that you fill each of our hearts with your presence. Help us to use the time we have together wisely. I ask that you would remind us to place one another's needs above our own. Please help us to seek the good of those around us, grant us patience towards each other, and help us to respect each other's input. We can all learn from one another, and I ask that you would help us to communicate well. May we be quick to hear and slow to speak. May we be even slower to take offense and quick to show grace and forgiveness. May our speech be well seasoned and our hearts filled with grace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Mr. Chapel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I got one slight adjustment to the agenda. When we get to the subject matter, the 7 subjects, we're going to allow for public comment on each thing before we vote. I don't know how long that's going to take, but we're going to allow that. And from today on, it will be a part of the agenda. You'll have a section in there that says for public comment. So, Madam Clerk, you please call the roll.
Miss Barrow.
Here.
Mr. Chappell.
Here.
Miss Galbraith.
Here.
Miss Gibson.
Here.
Mayor Kelly.
Here. First item will be approve the minutes from August the 15th. They're in your packages.
Make a motion to approve.
We have a motion.
Second.
Have a second. Madam Clerk, you call the roll, please.
Happily. Miss Barrow.
Yes.
Mr. Chappell.
Yes.
Miss Galbraith.
Yes.
Miss Gibson.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Before we start, and I know we're going to have an opportunity to speak between each subject matter, does anybody in the audience that would like to come to the podium, state your name, your address, and tell us what it is you'd like to talk about?
My name is Anna Marie Morris, and I live at 129 North Lakewood. I want to thank everyone who made and makes the YouTube channel possible. Last week I was able to watch the meeting while I was out of town. It's Thursday. I was disappointed by the tone of questioning from the audience last week because it sounded bitter and disrespectful. Elected officials, office personnel, firemen, police, and the people who serve on the various boards all deserve respect. I thought we were all working toward the same goal, making Parker a better place. Parker's a small town, and I thought it was a friendly community. Last week it was not that way. I try to help the city of Parker in any way I can. Mr. Chappell has events, Miss Barrow has events. We put out flags for Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and we pick them up. When I see employees at work and I tell them that I appreciate the work that they do, I tell the people here. I take cookies to the fire department, I take cookies to the police department, I bring cookies here. I do this because it affirms my appreciation for jobs well done for me, a citizen of Parker. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate your comments. Anybody else would like to come to the podium before we start? Okay. First item on the agenda is Culver's Development. And Mr. Carroll, is that you?
I'm Sean McNeil with
Yeah, you are.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Representing Culver's Development, my understanding is they were approved or recommended for approval by the planning board with a unanimous vote. Essentially, it's a 1.8 acre site. It's just south of Dollar General on Kendall Parkway, and it's about a 4,500 square foot Culver's building, which they have a little bit of a different menu, but it's nice food for
Yep.
If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer.
I don't, I know all the department heads reviewed the blueprints and the plans from your company, and they made some changes, and those were all corrected, and I'm really pleased we're potentially about to get a Culver's ice cream in Parker.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Very
It's
excited.
actually, frozen custard.
Yeah,
It sounds bad, but it's actually good.
it's very good.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So the,
Should we ask the
the, the agenda item is a presentation. Are we intended to vote on this development tonight?
Yep.
Okay.
Shall we open it?
Any other conversation from the council?
Or from
Would
the-
anybody from the audience like to address the engineer that's gonna build Culver's ice cream? Okay, so we need a first, a second, and a vote to approve this.
I'll make
Mayor?
a motion.
So,
Well, Mayor, the planning commission recommended that, approval with the standard conditions that I would, put on it.
Yep.
As well as, they had a condition for a backup stormwater easement.
okay. I thought it was there. I thought I looked at it in the plan, it was there.
Well, they have a stormwater plan, but, there was some concern at the planning commission, that they, wanted to have a backup in case the owner did not maintain the drainage system.
Owner would be Golden, it would be the convenience store that's already there. Are they gonna own retention?
Well, whoever the applicant is that says they own the property. is
Okay.
Who would be.
Can you give me any info that, just any input on that question real quick? Were you at the planning council meeting?
I was not, sir.
Okay.
I didn't really understand the comment.
The,
Okay.
the comments at the planning commission, Mr. McNeil, were that, there was some concern that historically the cities had difficulty with owners maintaining a stormwater, plan,
Okay.
stormwater system. And there was the discussion at the planning commission that resulted in a recommendation that, we just have what's called a backup stormwater easement, where if he fails to maintain the stormwater system, the city can come in and do it.
Okay.
So in other words, if they don't maintain the stormwater, the city will maintain it and bill them for it. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah, yes, sir. I mean,
Standard.
I don't know what, some other cities just use enforcement, whatever enforcement could do, effectively, but putting an easement on property is kind of unusual. But certainly, the other cities also actually, you have signed a stormwater certification
Right.
that they are required to maintain, and, I hope that they will maintain it, but.
I think what Mr. Sloan is saying, that the planning council recommended that we make sure that this is a contingent upon approval, correct?
Of a backup stormwater easement.
Yeah, of an active
That was
storm.
their recommendation.
Okay. Yep.
We'll, yes, we'll address that. That's not a problem. I don't
Okay.
think. Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yep.
That's, the reason for the concern actually came from an audience member that was here. That is a shared stormwater.
It is, I thought it
mechanism.
was,
Yes,
between
sir.
the store that's already there.
And the audience member, we looked at what they referred to as P-values, R-values. We
Right.
looked at the city engineer's responses to what the impervious nature of the area is. They're nowhere near even approaching the 0.9 or 90% impervious area.
That property
So
all runs into the parkway.
there was not a concern from the actual planning members. However, because there was an issue regarding it being a shared stormwater retention
Right.
mechanism, it's a wet retention mechanism.
Yeah.
The concern from the audience member at the time was, what if they didn't maintain it? So the thought being that oftentimes the city requires things like 3-year maintenance bonds. For example, if you're gonna build a subdivision, to make sure that that infrastructure, but as long as Culver's continues to own the property,
Yeah.
or the engineering firm that's gonna own it continues to own it, then there's no concern from the
Right.
planning commission regarding that. The actual mechanism and what they're building is adequate. Our engineer says it's adequate. The concern was, what if they failed to maintain it?
Right.
That did not come from the planning commission. It came from an audience member. We agreed it needed to be maintained. So making sure it's in the proper perspective.
So if Culver's was not there, the same rule would apply, wouldn't it? The retention pond would have to be maintained by the store that already exists.
In my opinion, it's actually better that it's shared, because
Yeah.
now you've got two
Responsible parties to keep it
responsible
clean up.
parties
Yeah.
to maintain it.
That's right.
And that water goes into that retention pond. You'll see it on
Yeah.
your plans there. It's kind of a step. It looks like it's a dry pond, but it's actually a wet pond, so they'll have to continue to maintain it, to make sure that it continues to collect water, doesn't, get garbage and things of that nature in it, which would prevent it from doing its job.
All right,
All right, sir.
thank you.
Well, I don't know why we would want to request an easement to work on somebody else's property. I think we just enforce the rule to meet their
We'd use
intended
code
to.
enforcement,
Yeah.
and that's what we would do.
I don't know that we need a bond because
It's already bonded.
it's bonded and we already have the ability to write it by code enforcement. So
Correct.
why would we
Correct.
add a stipulation that really isn't necessary,
Mr. Sloan, what's your advice, sir?
Well, I was just relaying what the planning commission
Okay, all right.
recommendation was.
So,
Given the fact that you can enforce it with.
code enforcement.
With code enforcement, it's different than a subdivision.
Yep.
The concern on the subdivision, as you know, Mayor, from years of
Yep.
dealing with a couple of them, is that the homeowners association goes away.
Defunct, and then
And
can't
then-
make clean it.
and then who do you go after? So.
Right.
In this case, that was just a recommendation from the planning council, so
Okay.
you all can decide what you want to do with it.
All right.
But there will be, I would recommend imposing the standard conditions that we impose on a development order, timing, and contacts, and all that stuff that's standard.
Okay. Council, what do you think?
I made the motion to, but with the
Accept it
stipulations.
with exceptions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Second.
The first and second, would you call the roll, please, Madam Clerk?
Miss Barrow,
Yes.
Mr. Chapel,
Yes.
Miss Galbraith,
Yes.
Miss Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Absolutely, yes.
Yay.
Thank you. When are they gonna start, sir? When are they gonna start pouring concrete? Monday?
Just clear, Ms. Farrell, was that without the easement?
Yeah.
Okay. But the standard condition?
Yes.
Okay, second item is Gilstrap Lot Division. Elkins, is there Mr. Elkins? Is that what that means there?
That
Mr.
is what
Elkins.
Mr. Elkins, or it's my understanding, is there anybody here representing Afara LLC? Okay.
Mayor, this may not be the right time to come before you all, particularly since any applicant, if there is an applicant.
If there is an
that
applicant.
is not here.
All right,
I agree.
My recommendation would be to consider tabling it, getting a proper.
well, I went and looked at it
application.
today, it's gonna be a code enforcement violation in the morning. I think I saw a giraffe walking through the property. So, all right, very good.
So do we need a motion to table it?
To table.
I'll make a motion to table this until the next council
Until-
meeting.
Yeah.
Well, Ms. Galbraith, if you would make your motion to table it until a proper application for a lot split is submitted.
Right, because it's not been done through the county or nothing.
Okay, amended. I will make a motion to table it until we receive the proper paperwork and applications.
Okay, need a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? You call the roll, please?
Miss Barrow.
Yes.
Mr. Chapel,
Yes.
Miss Galbraith,
Yes.
Miss Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes. Thank you, council.
Kelly,
Sir?
can I speak on that real fast? Just
Sure.
No, you
kind of
didn't
a
change
process thing.
Uh, I apologize. Before we voted, we should have opened it to the audience. Go ahead.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to make sure that everybody understands what's going on there. The planning commission only received, they came to us last week asking if there was anything in the land development rules that would preclude them from doing that land split. And there is nothing. In general, what they're wanting to do is they have approximately 1.3 acres of land. They're gonna divide it roughly in half, and they're gonna put two triplexes on it. That area is gonna be about 0.6 acres, 0.67 acres. So they could have roughly 10 development units on that area. if you look at section 5, okay, that is the standards for subdivisions. It's my understanding that there's some on the group here that believe that, that they have to apply to us to do that. The way that reads is that's actually for subdivisions. And I don't know that they would want to go and go to the county, ask for a deed to divide the property, and then come here for your approval. It seems like it would have to come here for approval first, get your approval, then the application to the county and the circuit court and the public records would then take place after this commission approves it. So, just my thoughts. Mr. Sloan,
That's
sort
what
of
I
a,
envisioned.
Yes, sir. Is that right? Yeah.
That's why I was suggesting to Ms. Galvin to table it until they make a proper application.
Excellent, yeah, because I want to remind the commission, we chose in the current land development rule to garner your approval anytime there's a land division or a land, if you're collating the land. So they get your approval, and then the applicants go to the county, and then once the deed is processed, then it goes to public records, then it goes to, taxation so that they can be adequately taxed.
We contacted the county today, and in 2014, someone from the city of Parker sent a letter to the county and said that all lot adjustments would have to be approved by the city council before the county would make that adjustment. Haven't seen a copy of the letter yet. I don't know if Mr. Sloan has ever seen a copy of the letter, but I'll get a copy in the next couple of days and see where we're at with that. But it seems to me that people are telling me a lot that we're a little bit slow in getting authorization for people to build, and I'd like to expedite that if we can, because folks are trying to build in Parker and they're having a difficult time doing that. So
in this particular case, planning really just reviewed it. Like I say, they could have up to 10 dwelling units on that property, provided you approve the split. But I just wanted to make sure that the rules that are in there for subdivisions are different from when you've got somebody who is simply dividing a parcel of land and then building something like it. It's going to be a major development because
No doubt.
They're wanting to put 2 triplexes on it.
Yep.
It's a minor development if it's a single residential piece of property, and then the city clerk looks at it, it goes through planning and it gets approved. But it would be a major development, so you all would have to approve whatever improvements they're gonna make, the buildings, setbacks and all of that. But in terms of the division, it was our understanding that they needed your approval, and then they go and fill out the applications to the county and then get it deeded. In this case, it probably.
that's what we discovered today. That's what the county rule is.
And I would point out, Mr. Reagan, that the issue that came before the planning commission was for discussion purposes. There was no pending application for a lot split.
Yes, sir.
The individual just came and wanted to have that discussion, kind of a prospective discussion. So you all did not have anything to review and decide, yeah, that's great or not great. And that's why, again, I suggested the motion the way it was.
Absolutely. I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood. It was really just a request for information. They weren't even seeking approval for anything, just as you just stated. And then it was just advised to them that they needed to come to you and seek council's approval in order to then go to the next step, which would be to divide, deed it, and record it.
Thank you, sir.
My question would be, was it just a letter that was written up, or was something the council voted on?
Well, we don't know that
I
yet.
wasn't there.
It was done in 2014. As with all questions and answers, the clerk is investigating it, and when we know, we'll get it to Sloan and we'll get a legal reading on it. But my understanding is that it was just, at this point, just somebody wrote a letter. And it's been that way, which we need to remedy that if that's the case. So,
I think it was Ms. Bradford that wrote the letter, probably, Tanya. So I think my recollection is that there was a problem with people doing lot splits and the city didn't know about it. And so that's why I want to say that it came before the council way back when, but I cannot say that for certain.
Well, I'm just saying, I think that something like that, the council should have voted on it before they sent the letter
And
down
you
there.
all, well, you maybe didn't, but the council may have done it at that time.
I wasn't
just-
there, I wasn't on the council at that time.
Right.
I will find out. I will get that letter tomorrow or the next day, and I will bring a copy to you, or the clerk will. All right, so item 3 is Mr. Brannon. Is he here today? Mr. Brannon, how are you, kind sir?
That's 2 R's in Gary.
Yes.
Gary Brannon, 1034 Brandon Place.
I'm so sorry,
I
Mr.
brought
Brandon.
this issue up several times about a property swap for a deed on 10 feet of my driveway in exchange for a 40 by 22 piece of private property at the lift station, which the city and the county has to use to get in and out of the lift station. There's also infrastructure on my private property that's, we've discussed that if we don't do the exchange, the infrastructure needs to be removed from private property. And I'm good whichever way this goes, but that's what this is here for today.
Couple of things, Mayor, if I could. Number one, originally the council gave a conceptual approval of this. I drafted the 2 deeds. Initially, there was some discussion about perhaps an easement for stormwater on what I would call the back of this property. My understanding is now that that's probably not something the city would want to consider. But I have the 2 deeds drafted. The one thing even though he's calling it a swap, technically, some could argue that it's a purchase when you're swapping, and so there is a provision that I would need you all to, by an ordinary vote, exempt the purchase as being less than $100,000. So therefore, you don't need an appraisal of the property that Mr. Brandon is talking about swapping. So I would ask Mayor, as part of the discussion, to authorize me to get with Mr. Brandon and work out the legal descriptions to approve not having an appraisal, and then for the council to determine the extent of what it is that.
Is that something you could live with, Mr. Brannon, with 2 R's?
So,
Do it.
we're saying it's gonna be put off again till we
No,
do
no,
some
no.
research
We're
on
gonna
this?
go ahead and do
No,
it.
I've got the deeds done, Mr. Brandon. I just need to sit down with you, and we need to figure out how to craft the legal description.
I got you. And there is a legal description already on the 10 by 265 foot piece. It's already a legal description where the county signed it over to the city. It's a deed,
Okay?
and I'm not trying to tell you business, but I'm doing real estate.
If you have that, that would be great.
And I do, but when the county signed it over to the city, it's just a deed, 10 foot by 265. In the city, all they need to do is sign that deed over to me and attach an easement, which means they would have the same right to maintain anything under that road forever. They just won't own that little strip. I really don't need the strip like I thought I did, but the city really needs this 40 by 22 foot piece of property. As you know,
Do you
when
have
we
a
had all
legal
those,
on that, Mr.
excuse me?
Brandon? Do you have a legal description on that?
No, because it's part of another parcel. And what I was, just a suggestion, not saying this is how it needs to be, but that could also be not a deed, but an easement on that piece, so you could come and go and maintain the infrastructure that's on my private property forever also. It's a permanent easement. So I don't know if we need to get that 40 by 22 surveyed or just give an easement to it. If you get an
Well,
easement.
regardless of how it's conveyed, whether by deed or easement, we've gotta have a legal description.
Gotcha, I
And
understand,
so
okay.
and it may be that you and I can sit down and come up with one if council approves, one, waiving the appraisal, requirement of the statute, and 2, the actual mechanics, and that we're not getting a stormwater easement on the backside of your property. If they approve all that, then I'm happy to sit down with you, the end of this week or beginning of next week and come
Yeah,
up with
that'll
those
be
2
fine.
legal
And
descriptions.
I've always offered that 5-foot strip back where they can clean out the storm drain water. Is that what we're talking about on the backside of my house?
No, at one point in time, you had offered, there's an area back there where.
Oh, I got you,
apparently
for
you've got a
stormwater
bunch of
drain.
Wood or something.
Correct.
back there.
And,
Yeah, I
and
don't-
I'm not real concerned with that either. I had actually got a report from the mayor that the engineers had sent it to EPA, and EPA didn't come look at it but it said a determination that part of that land was wetlands. And I don't know if anybody here is privy to what happened to EPA in the Supreme Court August 29th. It went before the Supreme Court on wetlands, and 65% of all the wetlands in the United States are not wetlands. They've been overreaching their bounds on EPA, saying wetland, wetland, you can't build. And now you can look it up. It passed
He's
5
right.
to 4.
I read it.
Yeah, I read it too.
They actually say that wetlands now have to be attached to a navigable piece of water, or tide comes up from a source like a lake or the bay. And my property doesn't. One side is on the other side of the sewer line road. So when they say wetlands, they kind of overreach a lot of times. And I looked it up on the Florida Fish and Wildlife, and they have a wetland map which is updated regularly. This land's not on it. I called EPA and asked them about it, and they said, well, all these maps aren't exactly accurate. And I'm thinking, then what are you going by on the one where they said mine is? So that's an
All I
issue.
can tell you, Mr. Brandon, is I was informed that the city wasn't going to want a stormwater easement on that property.
That's fine.
So,
Okay. And
Okay.
there's a Clean Water Act, running stormwater on private property too, and we'll address that in another issue. But yeah, I'll get with you. You let me know when
well,
next.
assuming the council.
We're gonna vote on it first.
I got you.
Requirement and,
Okay.
allows us to
All
do
right.
that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Council, do you have any questions?
No.
Audience, you have any questions?
Do you want this all in one motion, or do you want some separate?
Oh, well, I don't wanna vote on it until he gets all the paperwork up to.
But he has to get approval to.
Well, I've done, like I say, all I need now are legal descriptions.
He's been holding it for 2 months, the legal, everything.
I knew it was coming back up on the agenda, so I kind of been on hold waiting for you guys to talk about it. But I'll do whatever y'all want to do. You could put it in one motion, I think, to waive the appraisal requirement, and then authorize me to work out the legal descriptions on
With Mr. Brandon.
with Mr. Brandon on it, and take a deed from him on one piece and give him a deed on the other piece.
Okay, I'll make a motion to waive the appraisal, approve Mr. Sloan to meet with Mr. Brandon to work out the details of the legal description, and to do a land swap for the property around the lift station for the 10 by 265 driveway,
Got it.
And authorize the mayor to sign the documents.
and authorize the mayor to sign the documents once complete.
Second.
Okay, call a roll, please.
Miss Barrow.
I'm gonna say no because I don't have the documents and that they're not done, and that's a lot to be done and to vote on, so I'm saying no.
Okay.
Mr. Chappell.
Yes.
Miss Galbraith.
Yes.
Miss Gibson.
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Call my office, the end of the week, Mr. Brandon, we'll set a time.
Very good. Item 4 is been put on the agenda by Ms. Galbraith, discussion of the advisory committee for the ad valorem.
Well, and I don't know that I necessarily think it should be called an ad valorem advisory committee, but more of a budgetary. We kind of talked about this initially when we talked about adding the ad valorem, that we would allow there to be a committee to really do oversight, kind of like the infrastructure committee. And my opinion is that it might make the residents feel a little bit better about us taking their money if they can just see the detail around it. So I would like to see us have an advisory committee. More of an oversight than an advisory. So I'm going to call it an oversight.
So explain to me how that would work. What is the process of that? Who gets on the committee? What power do they have? What is their?
I don't know that I think they necessarily have power per se, but I think that it would be more about giving a group some details around the budget so that they can just see details. If they wanted to come back with recommendations or thoughts, they could do that. How do they get on the committee? I think that's something we all would discuss. I don't have all the answers for that, April. I just think that it would be prudent for us to consider it.
So my thought process on this is that we have the open budget meetings, and everyone who's attended the budget meeting gets the paperwork just like we get. We're going line by line, and it's on video now too, of what we're discussing. 17 radios, the brand new car, the whatever it is that we're discussing, and we go line by line. And we have had input from the audience before during those budget meetings. My thought, this is one more thing that our staff, who is already overworked, people doing 2 or 3 jobs, lot going on, learning new positions. It's one more thing that we're gonna have to manage. I don't have a problem with it. I just think that that is what these budget meetings are for, and if there is a concern, then it needs to be brought up at the budget meeting rather than to have a whole committee set up to do this.
And my only real comment to that, well, first of all, I don't think that my intent is to make it so that it's a heavy staff. Like, I don't know that my intent would be for Ms. Regan to attend these meetings and take minutes by any means.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of questions that come up about budget
Mhm.
that don't necessarily get answered. And there's not a lot of input, time allowed for input from residents.
So I guess my whole thought process is, if we open up the budget meeting, which it's open to the public anyway, if there are questions or concerns, I mean, we've answered those. We've answered various things of, well, why are you buying this when, you know, the truck is only 20 years old, and why do you need another 2 trucks? Why do you need a brand new trash truck? Why are you using this amount of money in a certain pot of money? And I feel like we've answered those questions. And
I disagree. I don't think that we do answer. I think a lot of times we shut them down and don't allow the discussion to go into any depth.
so my concern is that this is, you know, you voted for us to make the best decision for the city. And basically what you're saying is, we don't trust you with the ad valorem money. We don't trust you with your, with how we've spent the money.
I don't see it that way. I see it like Bay County, when they decided to impose a infrastructure half-cent sales tax,
Mhm.
they required there be an oversight for a committee to look at that money.
Mhm.
We have one sitting right here. It is a requirement of Bay County that
Well,
we do
part
that.
Part of the reason they did that is because there are only certain, you can only use it for certain things within the budget. And that makes sense because you know, you can't go by, I'm just trying to think within the house cent. You can't buy certain things with the house cent sales tax money. It has to stay within certain guidelines.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Based off of the law, right?
I'm aware.
So our budget is not set up that way. It's just not. That we have the house and sales tax, yes. We have the committee that is required by law through the county and through the state to take care of that. So it just, you know, I mean, I just think this opens things up to a lot of adversarial issues.
Well, I think we have those anyway.
I don't think
I'm
this is
hoping
gonna
that it would
change it.
subside it. That's what I'm hoping.
I
But-
don't think this is gonna change it. I don't.
No.
Not one bit. I mean, I'll vote for it, and I wanna see how it works out, because I don't think it's gonna play out the way that you think it will.
Well, I agree with everything you're saying. I'm not voting for it. So.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. If some people have something they want to say to us, you got 4 of us here, 5 of us here, present it to us, and we can bring it to the council and discuss it. But
That's a good point. That's a really good point. So all of you are aware and I checked on this in the last 4 or 5 days. If you ask a council member for an opinion, that is not the opinion of the Parker City Council. If you ask me for an opinion before I give you an answer, I get Mr. Sloan to vet it. So I make sure I give the correct answer. If a council member gives you an answer and we are not involved in that, that council member is alone on giving out that information. That's not speaking for all of us. Unless we're under the gavel, we are not speaking. So if you ask me a question, I'm going to say to you, you need to put it in writing, give it to the city clerk, and the clerk will vet it with Mr. Sloan. And then that way we don't get ourselves in trouble. That's my position on this. We've done so good until this last couple of years, and we have so many naysayers that we never had in the
You know,
past.
the thing that gets me the most about all of this is there was a council 3 years ago, before us three got elected. You all were in and out of here in less than 10 minutes most nights. There was no discussion. There were no people. Oh, am I timer up?
I'm sorry.
There was.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. There was no discussion. There was no sharing of information. There was no videos to have access to any of this. The website was horrendous. However bad you all think the website is now, you know what it was like before. We could not upload without paying somebody to just, even to put the minutes on. We have come so far, and we have been more open than any other council, I would assume, in the last 60 years. And to say that we're being disingenuous and that we're not sharing information, we post everything as we get it. If it hasn't gone to council yet, probably shouldn't post it, right? Like, talking about the audit. But for the most part, as soon as we get it, we post it. We are as transparent. I don't know how much more transparent we can be. And I truly believe that this is going to cause more issues. If you want to talk, I say what we do, and if you all agree to it, is during these budget meetings, obviously they're open to the public. They're announced, they're noticed. I think we have a comment section at the beginning, and we have a comment section at the end on every one of these budget meetings. So if you're like, well, why are you buying a forklift? How come our insurance is so expensive? Then you have that ability at that time and that place to have those conversations. That's my thing.
And I
on
think
it.
if we did that, I wouldn't be asking for this, but we don't do that. We don't give them an opportunity to ask their questions. We shut them down. So if we're not going to approve this, I think we need to be a little more willing to allow public participation.
I think there is animosity, as Anne Marie said. There's some really hurt feelings over a lot of things. That meeting, a lot of those questions, those people asking those questions, they were at the meetings on the budget. Why are you asking these questions? These are questions that you know the answers to, and the inflection, the interpretation that I get from those type of questions is that they're trying to make not just the council, not just the mayor, but the city employees have, as if we're doing something wrong, that we're not being open and honest, that we're embezzling money, or that we're misappropriating money, or they're misusing the money. And that is not what's happening. We are doing everything we can to get as much money squeaked out through this budget to make sure that we use every dime the correct way. And I don't know what else I can say to that, but I firmly disagree in doing this budget committee, and I won't vote for it.
Mayor, you could offer public comment to this.
Absolutely.
Mine?
Yeah, by all means, does the council have any more conversation before we put public comment?
Comment.
Okay, you got it, sir.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with both of you. There's certainly you know, the mindset of being destructive and constructive. And I think we all know who's, you know, the glass is half empty and who has the glass is half full. And I think most people naturally know who those people are. It's just human nature. So I absolutely understand where you're coming from. But Stacy's got a great idea. Don't see it as people coming to you saying, why are you doing this? She's thinking of an idea mill. Put together 3 or 4 people that are going to come to you. You're the decision makers. You're the darn lawmakers. You make the final decisions. But the idea people can come to you and say, you know what? I went on vacation somewhere and they did this in the seaside city.
It's true.
It's an idea concept. House those people, harness those people to come to you to make the decisions, not to come to you and say, don't do what you're going to decide to do. It's how you view it. I think it's an asset to harness the will and the knowledge and the intellect of any city members. And I think natural attrition, the bad guys are going to get weeded out. We see it all the time. Bad guys don't continue to stay. Bad ideas, you know, naysayers, negative thoughts. I would encourage you. I would encourage every council member to see this as an asset and opportunity to garner more ideas, not necessarily for how to spend the money, just how to make our community better. How is it that way? And I think maybe people could buy into that, and maybe all of you will buy into that. Don't see it as somebody who's just gonna, and in fact, you set the direction. Set the direction to give those people the opportunity to come back to your council members and the mayor and say, and you tell them, say, you know what, we need 5 ideas to make this community better. And then naturally, those are gonna be projects that cost money. So you discuss them, open it up to general comment, see how everybody else thinks about it. But harness these people to be your idea. You all have full-time jobs. You don't have a lot of extra time to be doing this, but we have a lot of retirees here who probably have excess time to be that idea mill. So I would just encourage you to rethink Stacy's idea. I think it's a good one, but you've got to position it and house it so that it's a positive influence, and just don't put anybody in the damn committee that is a naysayer. And you know what? We know who they are. We know who they are. We're humans. We see it, and you just have to see the positive aspect of it, in my opinion, to be an idea generator, not one that's going to be just a naysayer.
I will tell you, Mr. Rega, and I will say to everybody in this room, the negative activities that have come out of this room in the last 100 days have impacted all of the employees that work for the city. When an individual volunteers his time and he works a 40 or 50-hour week and he hears criticism on that camera from people who live in the city of Parker, it causes them to not want to give their time to the city of Parker. Now, if you think 3 mil ad valorem is a lot, and you got to pay 10 for fire protection, then you'll really be singing the blues. When you say derogatory things about people who kill themselves every day that work for the city of Parker, the morale goes down. If you've ever been in a paramilitary organization, you know you do not inspire men to do the work that they do by being derogatory. And I will tell you, I do not support this. Ma'am?
Oh. I'll make it quick. So the ad valorem, if anybody paid attention, when Stacy did that lovely little flyer at the round table, this was a year and a half, 2 years ago, talked about why we needed the ad valorem. So let's say you and I have a relationship and we have $2,000 for the month to make our budget and we need another $500. We're going to have that to pay the bills. I don't need a committee to tell me what to do with that $500. You're gonna go Uber, I'm gonna go, I don't know, DoorDash. We're gonna make the 500 and we're gonna pay the power bill. So a committee to say what we're gonna do with money that's kind of already allotted in that budget seems a bit redundant. All right? I don't understand why we would have that committee to say, oh, well, I don't think you should spend that $10 on postage. Maybe you shouldn't buy 2 extra reams of paper. This is nitpicking, picking a carcass that is not dead yet until it is. And that's what that would allow to do.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else? Yes, Anne Marie?
I am against this idea for the same reasons that I've heard here. If you have to have discussion about a budget on a committee, that means your finance person has to be here. That means Mr. Summerlin's got to be here, because they're part of the budget. I think we don't need a committee. We elected you to do these things. We don't need somebody to oversee you unless they're here during the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you.
129 North Lakewood.
Anybody else? I guess we need to put this to a vote.
Well, you need a.
First and a second, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's clear that you guys don't like the idea and you're not going to approve it. And I just think it's sad that we don't encourage participation from our citizens, so. We're taking a lot of money out of their pocket, and I think it'd be nice to let them participate in some capacity.
Ms. Galbraith, you asking us not to vote?
I'm not making a motion if that's what you're asking me.
Okay. Do I have a first? Eyes on the vine. Next item is the discussion of an advisory committee for the sports complex.
So here again, we talked about this at the last meeting. We said we were going to do it, and then we haven't done anything with it.
Well,
So,
we're doing it now.
So I envision this as almost how the national park situation, how they did the map for the sports complex, where we do a special meeting or a workshop, we bring in the maps, we have everybody show up.
and have us make a decision in one night. That's what you want to do?
No, we do, if we do multiple sessions, like one every couple weeks, get input. We could even do a form on the website. Hey, what's your ideas? Do the cutoff before the date.
So if I'm not mistaken, we voted on this at the last meeting, did we not?
No, we didn't vote.
No, we didn't
You
vote.
sure?
We verbally agreed, I believe.
I can't recall. No, the only remark I made was it'd be people that lived here, but that didn't mean I said I
But we
was
didn't
for
have a
it.
first and a second or anything like
No,
that.
we didn't vote on it.
don't recall.
We wouldn't have it on the agenda tonight if we'd have voted on it.
Well, I added it because we didn't do anything with it.
Okay.
So instead of having a group of 5 or 7 or 10 people, let's open it up and let's make a special workshop. We do like every 2 weeks for 3 weeks or for 3 sessions. We get input off of the website. They can email their ideas in and we pull them in and we work off the map. And
Mr. Sumlin, where are we with getting the next step for the park that we need to have a conversation with it?
We are answering questions from FEMA.
Yeah.
It's moving now. It was not moving, but it is moving closer to trying to get approval for phase 2.
When do you think that could potentially be?
If I had to guess, it probably would be till the first of the year.
After the first of the year. So we have between now and the first of the year, that we could have a sit-down conversation and open it up to everybody that would like to come to the event. Because there's people watching that won't get a chance to speak unless we open it up to the public. Most people are on that camera at home enjoying their dinner and looking at it on television. So my feeling is, once we know that we're even going to get paid, if we're not going to get a check for it, then it's kind of pointless bidding it
we
to death.
still have to have a plan of what to do, and that ties into the grant writer, right? There's plenty of park money out there. We need a grant writer, and if we had a grant writer, we could have them write grants, but we also need the plan to write the grant to figure out what we need for the grant. If
Well, let's
that
get
makes
through
sense.
item 5 before we get to item 38 or whatever it is down here.
All right.
Item 5 is the discussion of the advisory committee for the parks. How do we feel about that?
That's what she was just talking about.
And what she's saying, but we're not there yet. We're not to the grant writer yet.
But shouldn't we put the plan together before we get the grant writer, so that as soon as we get the grant writer, they know they need to write and for a new community center. They know they need to write for a playground. They know they want to get money for the outdoor
We need a
theater.
plan, so we either need to put a committee in charge of it and somebody make us a plan, or we need to come up and start doing workshops and get the community
What about
involved to do it.
when we all met 2 years ago when we got the state
But then we
park?
changed it, Mayor. We
I know we
changed
did.
it, and
We
we
did. We
don't
should have
have
done
a
too,
grand
but
plan.
We should have stayed with what the plan we had.
But even then, we didn't have a grand plan. We only had a
Hmm.
partial plan.
And then we couldn't do all of it because of the FEMA guidelines. There were
Right.
things that we couldn't do, right,
You
Tony?
can't put it back the way it wasn't.
We could not do that first plan because,
Well, that's why we're waiting for phase two, because that's what's not been approved by the
Right.
people we put back.
It could be 2 or 3 years before we see that money.
but I
But
think
you're right, if
having
we had a
the
plan, we could get something to give us something to change.
Well, why don't we, the next regular council meeting, we decide on a date we could do a workshop, and that way it gives the people enough time to, if they want to come and hear what we got, what we're doing at a workshop, that's what it's for, we can sit and talk about it.
Okay.
I think we tied the workshop in with, just like we did with the naming of the pier. They can submit their ideas if they can't come to the workshop, so that everybody is represented. I just don't know that we need a whole committee for this.
Again, I'll just think it's a way to let the community participate. But if you guys want to do it through a workshop,
So
set it up.
if we, so let's just work this out. If we do a committee, 5, 7 people, 3 people, we have a committee, what do we do with them? How does that work? Do we set up a special workshop for the committee with all of us here?
Wouldn't it be better for us to have a workshop and people that want to
Exactly,
participate to
they
come to
have
the workshop?
participating and come here and be part of it.
I'm just trying to see how this would work as a commit, like if we were to do a committee for this. And with those people, like, hey, we're doing the committee, we're having the workshop for the ideas for the sports complex, give us all your ideas, and then they present to us what they wanna do? Is that what, I mean, I'm not trying to be,
It's clear we don't want to do this either. Let's just move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. Do we have a first for item 5?
know what I would like to do. I would like to make the motion to do at least minimum 3 workshops with participation on the website to put in ideas for the sports complex. That's my motion.
Okay. Does anybody have anything? Does anybody want to second that?
Well, I'll second it.
You second it? Okay. Move a first and a second. You call the roll, please.
Miss Barrow,
Yes.
Mr. Chappell,
Yes.
Miss Galbraith,
Yes.
Miss Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes. Thank you, Council. Okay. That brings us to our task list on the second page. Madam Clerk, if you would.
Yeah, number 6 is,
Oh, yeah.
Credit
we
card.
just, number 6
Is the credit card administration allocation for our city clerk. She doesn't have a city credit card.
well, I do, you approved the card, but Trustmark split. So the bank itself is one entity and now the credit card group is another. So you went ahead and approved that, but for me to become the administrator, it has to be written into the notes.
In the minutes,
that-
right?
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sorry, into the minutes,
Yeah.
that you approve me becoming the administrator.
So I think there's an internal control issue with the city clerk holding a credit card and also administering the account. So if we approve this, I would like to make a recommendation that somebody set an internal control for how that flows.
Yeah.
And I think an easy answer could just simply be that somebody else has to sign off on the city
Like
clerk's.
Suzanne or Julie?
Would
Mayor?
Julie would
Well, the
write the
assistant,
check,
assistant
so-
city clerk. Could be that one.
just, it could
second
end
one.
us in another internal control issue if we don't set something
Yep.
in a policy.
Why wouldn't it be the mayor?
It could, well, that's what I was had written down, that the mayor could be the one that checked it, but
Cause he's
I think it
over-
should be written in the policy.
All right, I'll do it. I check everything every way, every day anyway. Do we have to vote on it, Mr. Sloan?
Yes, sir.
I make a
Okay.
motion that we allow the mayor to oversee what the clerk does
Make
with
her
credit
the
card.
administrator.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a do we have a second?
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Miss Barrow,
Yes.
Mr. Chapel,
Yes.
Miss Galbraith,
Yes.
Miss Gibson,
Yes.
Mayor Kelly.
Yes. Okay.
Now we're on to task list.
Madam Clerk, if you would go through the task list and tell us what we're at, where we're at.
Okay, we have the procedural manual,
I'm passing that back to staff.
passing back to staff.
You got it done, Stace? Good.
It's about 3/4 of the way done, but
Very good.
staff can have it back.
All right, thank you.
Zoning changes.
That was removed a couple months ago.
Okay.
I wondered about that. Grant writer.
That- You gave me the dates to put in the actual the bid package.
Yeah,
So I have a new set of dates,
okay.
and those will go out. The dates are, the beginning, will start October the 8th.
Okay.
Are we?
The
okay.
lady that came before, does she still get to bid again?
She can bid again, yes, sir.
Okay, cause it,
The one that I
how it
have an
been?
email for?
Yeah, that's when you have the email.
Okay.
Okay, so we keep putting it off. Is there any reason why it would potentially get put off again?
No, it got put off this last time because it was just a lot to learn and
Okay.
to do. So that's on me, and it will not get put off again.
Okay, so we also didn't put out the one for the health insurance agent. At this point, we've already turned over, so.
I discussed this with the finance director of Callaway. As you know, your city clerk does a lot more than most others, so it was the finance director. He gave me directions and said those should actually go out in June. He said it was way too late. We looked at it, and I simply
Well,
couldn't learn it quickly enough. to
Fair.
make
I mean, it
happen.
could have been done. We had a timeline and it could have been done at that time, but we also flipped over city clerks.
We did.
But we did vote on it and it was on record that we were going to do it, so.
It was, and.
Do we have to do anything with that, Mr. Sloan, since we just didn't do it?
Timing of it is just.
Can we
be a
please
little different
calendar
than
it
what
for
we-
Yes.
next year?
It is already calendared,
Okay.
and it has a slot.
Okay, the next item you have on here is a records request ordinance. We already did that too.
Done it. And, deposit
We already did the last one.
application, yeah.
Okay. Now, did we
And
want- is there
the
anything?
next meeting will be the final budget hearing on September the 21st, and I believe that's at 5:02, is that correct?
It is.
I thought that was supposed to be at 5:01.
5:01? Well, I'm being told 5:02.
Yeah, we set it at 5:02. It was probably.
Would you like a different time?
No,
Please
Okay.
don't.
I almost missed the last.
5:01 in a bit?
I'll call you
September the 21st will be the CRA budget also,
immediately following.
and regular council meeting's October the 3rd. I wanted to pass along to all of you, and I haven't had a chance, and I don't know if the clerk has told you or not yet, but we'll forego the 5th Tuesday meeting in October because it falls on the 31st, and I'm pretty sure that everybody will be at the VFW participating in the trick-or-treat event there. So we'll skip that till the next, yes, ma'am.
Cat Bosick, 1344 Stratford.
Yes, ma'am.
At the last council meeting, we identified that the 5th Tuesday was on the 31st, and the council, I believe, agreed to have it on the 24th. So now we're not gonna have it at all?
That was infrastructure. That was not.
Infrastructure.
That was
meeting.
infrastructure.
Okay.
It was
Okay,
not
my
council.
apologies, thank you. Oh, one other thing since I'm here, on the deposit increase and application change, understand that that's done as far as the council, but have the changes been done in City Hall? Do we have the new applications and all that, so that we can start doing that for new utilities? Okay, thank you, good, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you
ma'am.
for reminding me. I'm supposed to ask you guys to participate in VFW. You can donate candy, you can come and decorate your car and give out candy, or we'll take cash and buy candy. So yes, if you got any donations of candy, last year you guys come up with a whole bunch.
Would you like me to put that back on the website for candy
Yes,
donation? And
yes.
drop it off
Yes.
here, is that okay?
Yes, yes.
And put me down, we'll do a trunk.
Come, it's so much fun.
We'll do the trunk with the kids.
The auxiliary has authorized $900 to spend for the candy, so we've got a budget, but you know, you can never have too much chocolate.
Thank you, Esmeralda. Mr. Chapel, you have anything you'd like to talk about?
Well, yeah, tomorrow, we changed our meeting for this Parker Fun Day type of thing. We were gonna do it on Thursday of this week, but we have a budget meeting on Thursday, so we're gonna be doing it on Wednesday. We do need a lot of volunteers to help man different games and stuff that we're gonna have. I don't want the kids or adults running around with different, we just need some help kind of manning things. And we're gonna meet at the Parker Lodge tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And we'll try to write down names of people that will be responsible for taking care of the popcorn machine and taking care of the fishing thing and stuff like that. So if you want to volunteer, come on over to tomorrow at the lodge, and we'll get you down. And we need some alternates too, in case somebody gets sick or something, because it's a little ways away, a couple of months. So a lot of things can happen during that period of time. But other than that, it's
Mr. Chapel, that's tomorrow night at 5 p.m. at the Masonic Lodge.
yes,
And when is the event date?
November 11th.
November 11th.
yeah, November 11th, it's
on
Veterans Day.
Veterans
And it's gonna be after the parade. The parade is over in Lynn Haven, Callaway. And,
It's from 3 until 6, is that correct?
yeah, I think the parade normally starts about 10 o'clock and goes to about 12. And I think we're gonna try to do it around 2 to 5 or something in that area, still during daylight hours.
Okay.
And it's
The
just a,
time changes the
it's not a
weekend
city function, it's just a bunch of people in the city that wanna do something, so.
Ms. Galbraith, you have
No,
the
I
floor.
have nothing.
Okay. Ms. Barrows?
I have nothing.
Ms. Gibson?
I have a comment. So I put a little thing together because I wanted to get this straight, because the things that I spoke about earlier have affected everyone in City Hall, have affected our employees, have affected our previous city clerk, and I'm just gonna read this off. And it is what it is, but I want this on the record so that you understand. I get a little testy, I get a little grouchy during meetings, but I think once you hear all of this, you'll understand what we've been dealing with in the quiet part of this that nobody else is hearing. Over the past year, various citizens have bombarded City Hall with dozens and dozens of frivolous public records requests, creating hundreds of hours of work for our already overloaded staff. Citizens have called FDLE and have accused our current city clerk, our previous city clerk, and our mayor of misconduct over these requests, all of which have been dismissed outright by FDLE. Because of this, Parker also incurred thousands of dollars in attorney fees to deal with these allegations and these requests. An ethics complaint was made to the State of Florida Ethics Commission against the mayor, and as per Florida law, it was investigated and yet again dismissed outright. I want this to be on record. We lost an excellent city clerk because of this. And try not to get emotional, it angers me to my core that this vitriol is being spewed to our employees the things that are said online, and I've said this before, it's just unacceptable. It's uncalled for. And we are doing nothing but trying to make the city better. And I want you to know what they're going through, because they see this every day when they get on Facebook, when they get on Nextdoor, and they hear about it in town, and they have to keep putting up with it. And we've lost more than one person because of this stuff, and it's not okay. And you need to know what we're dealing with. This is all in the background. You all don't see it. But this is what we've been dealing with the last 6 months. So I don't know how to fix it. There is no way to fix it until people change their minds to try to improve Parker instead of tearing it down and to tear us all down. Because you know what? We're not going anywhere. I'm not quitting. The mayor's not quitting. We got elected. We're here. Vote us out if you don't want us voted out. But don't keep doing this to our employees. You know, we took this job. We're elected officials. I guess we should keep taking it. But they don't deserve it. Tony doesn't deserve it. Jamie didn't deserve it. And Kim Riga doesn't deserve getting the FDLE called on her over public records requests. And that's all I've got to say tonight.
Madam Clerk, anything you'd like to talk about?
Well,
Time's up.
So I did want to thank those of you that have been so supportive. I understand there's been a lot of mistakes. This job comes with a ridiculously steep learning curve. And I could not agree more that we had an excellent former city clerk. And you now have to have patience with a novice learning
We had
the
patience
job.
with her too.
Yeah, so I want to thank
God knows, did we?
I want to thank those of you that have been so patient and supportive. I also want to change the tone a little because I want to remind everybody it is Constitution Week. Happy Constitution Week. I don't know if you saw that on the marquee. I am particularly fond of our founding fathers and the Constitution. So I asked the mayor if I could read a quote from my favorite founding father and president, Thomas Jefferson, right there. And he said, "Nothing can stop the man with the right mental attitude from achieving his goal. But nothing on earth can help the man with the wrong mental attitude." So I'm hopeful that we change the attitude, we do what's right for Parker, and again, thank you for your patience in my learning curve.
Thank you, everybody. I got a letter this morning.
Do what?
Tony, got a question for you.
Gary. You can have everything else, I just have to take your call.
You know, you never know something gets screwed up. I know that